So there's the previous video, and maybe you guys can even see it about now. I've reviewed it and I've put it up on my page, and let's just be honest. The reality is that I have a site that I'm going to use to express myself. And I mean, I don't like to say that I'm going to put these videos up whether you like it or not, whether anybody likes it or not. I don't like to look at it like that. But I have the firm belief that sometimes things just have to be said. I feel that way because there were people at the Kingdom Hall back when I became a Jehovah's Witness who didn't seem to think it was necessary for certain things to be said. And if you don't speak up about things, somebody could really get hurt bad. And if you don't take the time to investigate something and get to the bottom of something, it can go on for years and years and years and years, and just a little communication is all it takes to clear it up. And of course, I have looked into this situation that has transpired between us since Jerry's memorial, and what a mess. I am so sorry for any kind of pain or suffering or anything that I've caused. I'm very boisterous, and I speak my mind. And if that's a crime, then it's a crime. I can apologize for the things that I have said that have hurt people, but I'm not going to apologize for speaking out. Because I'm not afraid to apologize, and I'm not afraid to admit that I was wrong. I always keep in mind, I might be wrong. So, excuse me a second. Yes, I might be wrong. Because I feel like that is part of what humility is, to admit that you're wrong, apologize, and try to fix things. I did that with Jerry. Everybody probably knows about the situation that happened with the Durango. My Kia, my white car, my Kia, I'm just going to go into this for a second. I lived at Brownstone Apartments out there in Kansas during the years of 2016 to 2019. And when it snowed in 2019, I believe, I think it was, I started having car problems because they didn't bother to put ice melt out in the parking lot. And so 2 days I had to try to get my car out of the ice and snow. This is the way I see it anyway. I ruined the engine by trying to pull out of that ice and snow because they didn't put ice melt down, and it was really high. The snow was really high, and it blew my engine. And Jerry was coming out to Kansas to help me. He was driving all the way out there in his white van, helping me. I didn't have anybody else to help. He was going out of his way to help me to get that damn car going. And it did run for a little bit longer, and then it died. And it was tow after tow after tow after tow. And and then Angela helped me to get somebody else to help with the car. So David helped with the car, Brittany's husband. Yes, I'm going to drag them into this too. So David tried to fix it. It didn't work, so I bought, they happened to have that HHR, so I bought it from them. But the point is that Jerry was going way out of his way to help me. And then, but before the HHR, I was desperate. I didn't have a car. I had moved in here and I had no car. My Kia completely died. So, what are you supposed to do? You're supposed to go to family first. It's family first. And I knew that Jerry had a Durango, and it was out there by Jenessa's house. And I'll never forget the look on Jerry's face. He was so mad that I was bothering him about that Durango, because I think he knew that it was not a dependable car, but he didn't want to tell me no. And out of the goodness of his heart, he tried yet again to help me. And I knew that this problem was ruining our relationship. We had been building a relationship, Jerry and I. When he would come out to Kansas and help me, I'd take him to eat. I'd take him out to eat. He sat and watched a movie or two with me. We had beautiful conversation, you know, and we would sit and smoke and enjoy each other's company, and then we'd be able to hang out at Mom's and sit out on the front porch, and we'd shoot the stuff, and we were actually building something finally. And Jerry and I connected, and I wasn't afraid of him anymore. I'd been afraid of him my whole life because everybody was talking about him negatively. So then the Durango comes in, and I messed up. I messed up really bad. I needed a car. I was desperate. I ended up paying him the $300 left that I owed him for that car, and then I continued to give him money because I told him I would, because I wanted to make it right with him. I wasn't going to leave my relationship with Jerry on bad terms. Not after what we had just built. It took years and years and years to be able to have a relationship with him. And he made a big impact on my life. We had a lot in common. And we connected. And now what's left is Jesse. I'm sorry that I'm having to bring all this stuff up, you guys. But I like to communicate, and I like to make sure that there's no stone unturned so that we can resolve problems and not end up with 30 years of not talking to somebody because of a wrong conclusion about something. You can lose 15 years just by not getting to the source of the problem. You're going to find that I'm going to refer back to this thing quite a bit. Now I can get online and find, I already did, I looked online to find the parts for this thing. But I think I'm going to pitch it, because I think that, well, I don't know. I'm the kind of person who's going to pick things apart. And I don't like games, you know. Thank you for this, Jenessa. Angela reminded me, and I knew she was right when I read it, she reminded me of all the things that you did for me, Jenessa. All the kindnesses that you showed me for Jerry's memorial. I appreciated it. I appreciate it very much. Here's all your pictures. Now I put some videos up about your pictures, and I was in a bad mindset. I was in a bad place. But I'm not there now. I was able to think it out a little bit harder, and I came to some more accurate conclusions. I have to apologize. I already apologized, but I'm going to continue to apologize. And you know, if you don't like me, that's okay. Maybe I like you more than you like me. Whoever you are. But I just believe that things need to be said. And it's like I've said about this little family here. I don't want them to be the target of a vicious attack, because I don't think that there was any bad motives coming from Jesse. Jesse is not a weak person. No, Jesse's not weak. He might be sensitive on a certain level, he might be introverted, but he's not stupid. But Jesse also doesn't have time for confrontation. You know, Jerry didn't like confrontation. You know, it's a pretty admirable trait to try to avoid confrontation, and especially to not be the cause of confrontation. Because pushing people's buttons, you push enough of somebody's buttons, and you might be responsible for a suicide. Now, I also have been putting on here that I am apologizing to Deanna. I made accusations against Deanna and against Jennifer about being friends with Deanna on Facebook. Jenessa being friends with Deanna on Facebook. You know, I don't care if you guys come through and troll my sites. That's what they're out there for. I'm not keeping any secrets. You can check into my site whenever you want. And if I'm saying things that offend you, well, maybe in time I will come to a better conclusion about things. Because, you know, my thinking isn't always right. I know that. But I feel like hopefully I'm humble enough to accept when I have concluded something wrongly. And to admit it. And to apologize to whoever I've offended. Because people's feelings matter to me. So I come back to this point. I'm kind of getting my videos a little bit scrambled up here because I forget to delete my previous videos and then it cuts me off. But what I've been putting on here, and I hope I didn't already say this, but I guess it doesn't hurt to bring it up more than once. We've been calling Jesse introverted and sensitive. I don't think that's accurate. I'm not sure how much you guys understand about this particular personality trait, but this is a personality trait that I have never been able to master, but other people seem to have this trait naturally. They're just wired that way, and it's the most beautiful thing I've ever seen. I wish I could do it, but I can't. It's the word passive. And here's some definitions of the word passive. Being passive means not taking action or expressing oneself, but instead allowing things to happen or others to make decisions, often characterized by submissiveness or a lack of resistance. This is not a weakness. This is a very strong individual here. This is a kind of person who does not like confrontation. And in Jesse's case, what I have concluded is that Jesse has been trying to prevent confrontation in our family. I feel like Jesse is a patriarch in our family. He's proven to be very strong, devoted to family. He is such a devoted husband and father. Anytime I've ever seen Jennifer and Jesse and their children at Mom's for a picnic or anything, and at Jerry's memorial, they get along beautifully. You can see the harmony. I'm not just saying this. I'm not patronizing. Not at all. I've never seen a trace of anything confrontational. I don't think I've seen it in Jenessa's family either. Not that you're going to sit and look for it and pick it apart and criticize and judge. I don't see it in Jenessa's family either, and that's great, you know. It's admirable, of course. I mean, we need to compliment people for their hard work and how they strive to raise a decent, God-fearing family, right? A law-abiding citizen. We need to have a connection with our families. We need to have an open communication in our family. And we need to root out things that cause contentions and strife. Do you know what those words mean? Contention and strife? It's problems that break down family connections. And a lot of times it's based on lies or misconceptions, or somebody trying to protect somebody else at the risk of somebody else's relationship getting thrown out the window. If something that we choose to do ruins somebody else's relationship, a person would have to ask, did you do it on purpose? What were you trying to prove? Were you trying to protect somebody? Did that person ask for your protection? Did they need your protection? Are you making that person look weak because of something you shouldn't have said? Do you see where I'm going with this? And it always goes back to this. Why did you give me this? I appreciated the gesture. I really appreciated it. But it broadcasted to me that you know who I'm talking to. You know about my Facebook sites. You've probably seen every video I've put out against Deanna. I was under the impression, and I was incorrect, I was under the impression that Jenessa, until I came to my senses, I was under the impression that Jenessa and Jennifer were trying to stir up shit to entertain Deanna. Because they're both friends with Deanna on Facebook. I don't, when it comes right down to it, I don't really know that. It's accusing people falsely. And that's what my daughter did, is she actually, well, maybe I needed her discipline on it. I want to be humble enough to accept the discipline if somebody can see things clearer than I can. Now, I can see it from, she really chewed me out. But of course, when she chewed me out on Friday last week, I'm thinking, where are you getting this from that you need to chew me out about this? I mean, her zeal. The zeal was like, wow. But I think we missed the whole point. Now, I'm sure I've already brought this up. And it's like I have said, I have to ask this question to Jenessa. Do you realize how weak you made Jesse look? Do you realize that you gave the impression, Jenessa, that Jesse was a pansy? That Jesse was a pussy? He had no balls? That's the way you came across. You needed to tell Angela that I offended Jesse at Jerry's memorial. Here's what Jenessa said. I understand her perfectly. This is in a response to what I had told Angela, and I've already said it. I've already explained this. When I told Angela to tell Jenessa that I must have offended him because he's in grieving. He's in the grieving stage. I remember being in the grieving stage with my son, and almost everything anybody said to me pissed me off. I mean, it wasn't personal against them. It was just, I was mad as hell that I lost my son. Because when you lose your son, your daughter, you're going to be pissed off about it for a long time. And it changes everything. You end up becoming pretty angry for the rest of your life. And so it's like I brought out here, I understand her perfectly. She understood me perfectly, which is good. But then she says, but I can't tell Jesse because I don't want him to know I told you. See, that comment right there was just, wait a minute. He can't know that you told us? I probably already covered this, right? I already covered this. You can't tell him at all? You mean you can't tell him at all that you told us? If you tell him that I apologized, then he's going to know that you told us that I pissed him off. See, that's where it goes back to the word passive. It goes back to this word passive. Have you heard this? That a duck lets the water roll off its back? I remember back in the 90s being schooled on what that means. It's people who let problems, insults, degrading, anything that would normally piss somebody off, they just let it roll down their back. They just let it go. Doesn't bother them at all. To me, these are the strongest people on the planet. To be able to just let something go. Now, I'm sure we all have our points where we don't let things bother us because that particular thing doesn't bother you. I have had completely the wrong idea about this whole thing. I have been focusing on what I said to Jesse and trying to defend myself on that I'm insisting that I was not in an awkward moment. I was not struggling for things to say to Jesse. I wasn't trying to hurt Jesse. That had nothing to do with anything. That didn't have anything to do with it. It wasn't about that. It was about the fact that she couldn't take it back to Jesse that she told us. You know why? It's the classic case of going behind your brother's back and doing something that he asked you not to do. That's all there is to it. That's it. That's the problem. Jenessa broke Jesse's trust. And when I recognized that that's what she did, no, actually I kind of saw that, but I didn't hone in on the idea that the significance of that she betrayed Jesse. And then I betrayed Angela all day long Saturday when I was putting up vicious videos against Jenessa and Jesse. The terrible things that I was saying about Jesse, calling him a pussy, calling him weak, and, grow a pair. You gotta grow a pair of balls. I apologize for that. Please just scratch that off. That was 100% incorrect. I was wrong. And I'm not going to use the phrase my bad because it's not funny. And I don't like being put in a position where I have to get violent. I don't like getting violent. I don't like being provoked. Because what happened here is that my daughter was threatening to turn against me again. Because I was so offended by the fact that I was being accused of either deliberately hurting Jesse's feelings or of not being on guard to not say the right thing to him because he's very distraught about losing his dad. I've said that we've all been mourning, not just you, Jesse. But it's not about that. Jesse's best friend was, I'm sure, his dad. I mean, that's your father. And this is the masculinity of your life. And the thing about Jerry being a cross-dresser, I got over that a long time ago. You know, what that was his business. I don't get to judge that. Jerry was my brother and he was masculine to me, and what he wanted to do in his private life, that's your business. I don't have any right to judge you. I'm going to show you this. I wore this up to the hospital. And you know what? When I showed that to Jerry, you should have seen the biggest grin come across his face. I mean,